Hi, welcome back. This is the third in the series of vid bites that we're covering off on questions that are commonly asked of me when I'm working with leaders across multiple organisations. And the variations of these questions, of course. But this question here is, how can I effectively manage a non-performer? Now, this is a challenge for all of us, but we can make this easier for ourselves and easier for our team members. So the first step is, did you or did you not set clear expectations up front with this individual? Because if you didn't, so if the answer was yes, then we'll move on and I'll take you through a yes version and I'll take you through a no version. So if you did set expectations up front, right, you've set yourself up for success to have this conversation. So of course, what you need to do is you've identified the non-performance, you've gathered your data, so you need some real facts. So you focus on the individual, you focus on the behaviour, it's not about the individual. So what did they do or not do, and what did you request of them, and is that being clear, and then you can have that conversation. So what you do is you set up the meeting and then you send out ahead of time a clear reason for why you're meeting, so that the person has a chance to mentally prepare for it. When they rock up at the meeting, they need to have had a chance to have understood the question, so that they're, they can think about, well, now I know this question, I know that they'll be asking these type of questions, I'll get my data to support why. And that's a valid step in the process. So when you actually get together with a person, you need to reset your objectives. Why am I here? You just reiterate pretty much what you send out on the email to set up or the appointment that you set up. So just re-clarify that, and this is the first step. So here we are today to discuss this. I'd like to present the situation as I see it. Then I'd really like you to respond with your understanding of what happened, and then we'll work through that and we'll get an outcome. So then, once you've stated those concerns, this is what caused you to have this meeting. So these are the non-performance areas that have concerned you, and you're having this conversation. Remember to focus on the facts, and you need to listen to what their facts are. Now, this is where it becomes tricky, because if they have failed to perform, and they know that up front, and they often do, what they'll have a tendency to do is to take you on a bit of a trip, lots of reasons and etc., and they'll go off on a tangent. Okay, allow them to have that freedom to explore that, but then when they run out of steam, and they invariably do, bring them straight back to your original point and say, well, thanks very much for that, but I'm really interested in getting a response to this question. Did you or did you not do this, or how you approached it, etc. So keep bringing them back. And after a while, they'll realise very quickly that no matter what they say and trying to deflect your questions, they'll realise that you're going to stay on mission. So once you do that, usually that's when will actually start to engage with you more honestly, and usually get comments like, well, yes, it's true, I didn't do that, and I gave you reasons why. And then that leaves you to say, well, okay, given that you knew that was happening, what would have been the better outcome for you to do? For example, if they'd come to you sooner, then you could have helped coach them or provide them with some additional resources that would have headed that situation off. So you're trying to coach them towards realising that, yes, they've been given a task, but when you actually tasked them in the first place, you probably said that you would have supported them and come and ask me if you've got any questions or queries. But people get focused on the task, and then they discover they can't do it or can't deliver, and then all of a sudden they don't meet your expectations, and then we're having this conversation. So it's a good time then to reset those expectations. So if they've learnt that the outcome they were delivering wasn't acceptable, acknowledge that. That's a really great step. Then you can have a conversation about, well, what would have been the better outcome? And then they acknowledge that. And then you get a commitment to say that on the future times, that's what you do. Then the next thing is to reset your expectations. So many of the expectations that you have in your team are shared expectations, but I'm critical about the fact that you also need to bring it right down to individual levels. So yes, you've got some shared accountabilities, but you've actually got specific ones. So for example, a shared one could be an expectation I have of you is that you will look after your own safety out there in the workplace, and you'll be cognitive of others' safety, and you'll intervene to prevent a situation from happening. That's a shared one that you'd have across your whole team. An individual one might be, Frank, I need you to deliver this report no later than noon on a Wednesday. And that's your accountability. So that's very clear. It's not the team's, it's yours. So once we've been clear about those things, then people can respond. So once we get that in place, that would have been a conversation that would go through where you had previously set those expectations. So what if you haven't done that? Well, that's not going to help your situation. And in fact, you can have a conversation, but if you haven't preset the expectation with people, what I've identified is that you just go round and round a circle and there'll be nothing come out of that meeting. And in fact, both people go away frustrated. So my recommendation is step back, acknowledge that you screwed up as the leader, you should have set those expectations, set them then. So look, maybe you didn't get this outcome, this is being vulnerable, maybe you didn't get this outcome because I didn't clarify my expectations of you up front. So let me do that now so that we can avoid this situation happening. Because the reality is they may not have delivered simply because you hadn't done that. So give them the courtesy of that. Yes, you're taking a step back and you're going to have to wait a bit more time to see whether they actually step up and do perform or not. Okay, so that's the absolute clue. You're wasting your time if you try and do anything else when you haven't previously set up the expectations. And then they know you're serious too, and they know that you're going to cut them some slack and let them get on and perform. Now, what happens when the non-performer goes consistently below the expectation? So you've typically had some coaching interventions with them, brought it to their attention, they've committed to things and they haven't delivered. Right, after 2 or 3 times of that, max, then you need to step it up a bit. You need to actually sit them down and then you lock them into a performance plan. So these are the minimal, if you like, expectations that you expect of them to deliver over the next 2 to 3 months. And then you say to them that we'll be reviewing this on a weekly basis. And so there'll be a trend. You need to say, if you're successful in sticking to this plan and reaching the level of performance that I expect, then anything that goes before is a clean slate. You're starting with a clean slate. But however, you need to also realise that if you don't respond to this plan, then that could lead to disciplinary action, and therefore I have to escalate that to my immediate leader, and this could lead to ultimate termination. So be clear on your process. Now, most organisations have a policy and a process to follow. So I'd suggest you start with your HR team if you have one and ask them what the expectation of you as a leader, because that will help you know what you need to do in terms of this actually happening and degrading into a performance management plan. The other thing to consider is this will help you, what we've discussed here will help you anyhow. So I wish you well and all success on how I can effectively manage a non-performer.